The letter trembled in my hands, its edges worn from days of folding and unfolding. "We're so sorry, Emma," it read. "But we had to make a tough choice. A tough choice. That's what they called draining my college fund to pay for my stepbrother's extravagant wedding." I was 22, standing on the cusp of my final semester at community college, dreaming of transferring to a 4-year university. My parents, my dad and his new wife, Karen, had promised for years that the fund, built from my late mother's life insurance, was untouchable. It was my ticket to a future beyond the diner where I waitressed, balancing trays of greasy burgers and dodging handsy regulars. But that dream was gutted in a single paragraph, delivered in a crisp envelope alongside an invitation to a wedding I was never meant to celebrate. The betrayal hit like a freight train. My dad, the man who once carried me on his shoulders through sunflower fields, had chosen his stepson, Tyler, over me. Tyler, with his smug grin and tailored suits, who never missed a chance to remind me I was the other kid in this patched-together family. Karen, with her saccharine smile, had co-signed the decision, claiming it was a family investment in Tyler's future. A $50,000 wedding, complete with a string quartet and a 5-tier cake, was apparently more critical than my education. I sat on my twin bed in the cramped apartment I shared with 2 roommates, the letter crumpled in my fist. The walls, thin as paper, let in the hum of traffic and the neighbor's TV blaring reality shows. My shift at the diner started in an hour, but I couldn't move. How do you process the moment your family trades your future for someone else's party? It wasn't just the money. It was the years of promises, the late-night talks with my dad about my dream to study marine biology, to save coral reefs and swim with dolphins. He'd nod, his eyes crinkling with pride, and say, "You'll get there, Em. That fund's your golden ticket." Now, that ticket was confetti at Tyler's reception. I didn't cry. Not yet. Instead, I grabbed my phone and scrolled through the wedding invitations details. A vineyard venue, black tie dress code, a guest list longer than my shift schedule. The RSVP card stared back, its little checkbox mocking me. Attend? Decline? I wanted to write, "Decline, because you stole my future." But I didn't. I shoved the card into a drawer and headed to work, the letter burning a hole in my pocket. At the diner, the clatter of plates and the sizzle of the grill couldn't drown out my thoughts. My coworker, Jess, noticed my silence. "You okay, Em? You look like someone kicked your dog." I forced a smile, but the weight of the letter spilled out. Jess, who'd been through her own family drama, listened as I vented, her eyes narrowing with every detail. "That's messed up," she said, slamming a ketchup bottle on the counter. "Your dad and that Karen lady think they can just erase you like that? What are you gonna do?" I didn't know. Confronting them felt pointless. Dad always sided with Karen, and Tyler was her golden boy. But doing nothing wasn't an option either. I'd spent years scraping by, saving tips in a mason jar for textbooks, believing the fund was my safety net. Now I was free-falling. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling's water stains. A plan began to form, jagged and raw. I wouldn't beg or scream. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. Instead, I'd show them what it meant to be discarded. The wedding was in 2 weeks. I had time to decide how to make them feel the weight of their choice. The next morning, I called my dad. His voice was cheerful, oblivious. "Emma, you get the invite? It's going to be a big day for Tyler and Sophia." I swallowed the bile rising in my throat and said, "Yeah, Dad, I got it." And the letter. Silence stretched on the other end. I know it's tough, but we'll figure something out for your school. This was just a one-time thing. A one-time thing. Like my future was a line item they could cross off." I hung up, my hands shaking. The plan solidified. I wouldn't attend the wedding, but I wouldn't just skip it quietly. I'd make sure they understood exactly what they'd done. I started small. I stopped answering Dad's texts, letting them pile up like unread emails. Karen's voicemails, dripping with fake concern, went straight to delete. I worked extra shifts, saving every penny, and researched scholarships, loans, anything to claw my way back to college. But the real work was internal, building a wall around the hurt, turning it into fuel. Jess became my ally. She'd been cut off by her own family for refusing to play by their rules. "You don't owe them anything," she said one night, splitting a plate of fries with me after closing. "But you gotta show them you're not invisible." Her words stuck. Invisible. That's what they'd made me feel. But I wasn't. Not anymore. I dug into Tyler's life, not out of spite, but to understand. Social media showed a man who had everything: fancy job, fancy fiancé, and now my college fund. But there were cracks. Posts from Sophia's friends hinted at tension, at Tyler's late nights working. I filed it away, not sure how it fit, but certain it mattered. The wedding was a week away when I found it. A scholarship for marine biology students, full ride, but the application was due in 3 days. It was a long shot, but it was mine. I spent every spare moment crafting essays, gathering transcripts, pouring my heart into why I wanted to save the oceans. It felt like defiance, like spitting in the face of their betrayal. By the time the wedding day loomed, I was ready. I wouldn't just skip it. I'd send a message, one they couldn't ignore. The vineyard glowed under a golden September sun, its rows of grapevines stretching like a postcard from someone else's life. I stood at the edge of the property, hidden behind a catering van, watching guests in tuxedos and glittering dresses stream into the reception hall. My absence would be noticed soon, but I wasn't here to crash the party, just to deliver something that would linger long after the last dance. I'd spent the week before in a frenzy, balancing diner shifts with the scholarship application. The essays were raw, spilling out years of dreams and the fresh sting of betrayal. Writing them felt like carving my name into the future my parents tried to erase. But the scholarship wasn't enough. I needed them to see me, to feel the weight of what they'd done. So I wrote a second letter, not to beg, but to burn. The letter was addressed to Dad, Karen, and Tyler, sealed in a cream envelope that matched their wedding's aesthetic. Inside, I laid it bare. How Dad's promises had been my anchor, how Karen's dismissal made me feel like a stranger in my own family, how Tyler's smug entitlement had eaten away at my trust. I didn't curse or scream. I wrote with precision, each word a blade. "You chose a party over my future," I ended. "I'm choosing myself now." I slipped into the venue's parking lot, my beat-up sneakers silent on the gravel. The letter was tucked into a small gift box, wrapped in silver paper, with a tag that read, "For the happy family." I handed it to a confused caterer, asking her to deliver it to the head table during the toasts. She shrugged, too busy to question me, and I slipped away before anyone could spot me. Back at my apartment, I felt a strange calm. The letter was my line in the sand. I didn't expect apologies or refunds, just the satisfaction of knowing they'd read my truth. Jess was waiting when I got home, her eyes wide with anticipation. "Did you do it?" she asked, tossing me a soda. I nodded and she grinned. "Good. Now let's see how they choke on that cake." The next day, my phone exploded. Dad's voicemails were a mix of confusion and guilt. "Emma, what's this letter? Why didn't you come? Let's talk." Karen's were sharper, accusing me of ruining the day. Tyler didn't call, but his fiancée, Sophia, did. Her voice was soft, almost broken. "Emma, I didn't know about the fund. I need to talk to you." I didn't call back. Not yet. I was too busy refreshing my email, waiting for news on the scholarship. The deadline had passed, and the waiting was torture. Every ding of my inbox sent my heart racing, only to find spam or bills. But I kept moving: work, applications, plans. I wasn't going to let their betrayal define me. A few days later, Sophia showed up at the diner. She looked out of place in her designer coat, her eyes red-rimmed. I was wiping down tables when she slid into a booth, waving me over. "I read your letter," she said, her voice low. "Tyler didn't tell me about the money." I thought his parents paid for everything. I froze, rag in hand. You didn't know? She shook her head, twisting her engagement ring. He said it was family money, that it was all sorted. I swear, Emma, I would have stopped it if I'd known. Her sincerity caught me off guard. Sophia wasn't like Tyler. She seemed trapped, not complicit. We talked for an hour, the diner emptying around us. She told me about Tyler's lies, his late nights, his excuses. She'd suspected he was cheating but stayed for the wedding, for appearances. My letter had cracked something open in her. I'm not okay with this, she said finally. I want to make it right. I didn't trust her fully, but her anger felt real. We exchanged numbers, a fragile alliance forming. She promised to dig into Tyler's finances, to see where my money had gone. I didn't hold my breath, but it was something, a crack in their perfect facade. Meanwhile, Dad kept calling. His messages grew desperate, pleading for a meeting. I ignored them, but each one chipped away at my resolve. He wasn't a villain, just weak, caught in Karen's orbit. I hated him for it, but I missed him too. The dad who used to braid my hair, who'd promised to always have my back. The scholarship email came a week later. I was accepted. Full ride, tuition, books, even a stipend. I screamed so loud my roommates thought I'd won the lottery. Jess hugged me, laughing. You did it, Em. You're out of here. It wasn't just the money, it was proof I didn't need them. I could build my own future. But the victory was bittersweet. The wedding fallout lingered. Sophia texted, saying she'd found bank statements showing Tyler had funneled some of family money into a personal account. She was furious, ready to confront him. I didn't know what to do with that yet, but it felt like ammunition. I decided to meet Dad, not to forgive but to face him. We set a time at a coffee shop, neutral ground. I wasn't sure what I'd say, but I knew one thing. I wasn't the scared girl clutching a letter anymore. I was Emma, and I was done being invisible. The coffee shop smelled of burnt espresso and regret. Dad sat across from me, his hands wrapped around a mug, his eyes avoiding mine. He looked older, the lines on his face deeper, like the weight of my letter had aged him overnight. Emma, he started, his voice rough. I didn't mean for this to happen. I leaned back, arms crossed, letting silence do the talking. He fidgeted, then tried again. Karen thought we thought it was a loan. We'd pay it back before you needed it. A loan. As if my future was something they could borrow against. You didn't ask me, I said, my voice steady but cold. You didn't even tell me until it was gone. He flinched, and for a moment, I saw the dad who'd taught me to ride a bike, cheering as I wobbled down the driveway. But that man was buried under years of Karen's influence, her voice louder in his ear than mine. He babbled about financial strain, about Tyler's big moment, about how they'd planned to refinance the house to replace the fund. I cut him off. You chose him over me. That's what this is. His eyes welled up, but I didn't soften. I'd spent too many nights crying over their choice to let his tears sway me now. Karen wasn't there, but her shadow loomed. Dad defended her, saying she'd only wanted to unite the family. I almost laughed. Unite the family by stealing from me? I told him about the scholarship, how I'd fought for it alone. His face lit up, proud, but it only made me angrier. He didn't get to claim pride in a victory he'd tried to sabotage. I left the coffee shop with no promises, no forgiveness. But I'd said my piece, and that was enough for now. On the walk home, my phone buzzed. Sophia again. She'd confronted Tyler, and it had blown up. He'd admitted to using part of the fund for business investments, not just the wedding. She was done, she said, and wanted to meet. We met at a park, the air crisp with fall. Sophia looked exhausted, her perfect facade crumbling. She handed me a folder, bank statements, emails, proof Tyler had siphoned off thousands. I'm leaving him, she said. I can't stay with someone who'd do this. Her voice shook, but there was steel in it. I saw myself in her, the The moment you realize you have to save yourself. We hatched a plan. Not revenge exactly, but justice. Sophia would demand a financial audit as part of their divorce proceedings, exposing Tyler's lies. I'd use the evidence to confront Karen, who'd claimed the money was a family decision. If they wanted to play family, they'd face the consequences together. Back at the diner, Jess was all in. "You're like a freaking detective now," she teased, but her eyes were proud. She helped me draft a letter to Karen, formal and sharp, demanding answers about the fund. I didn't expect a check in the mail, but I wanted her to squirm, to know I wasn't letting this go. The scholarship gave me breathing room, but it didn't erase the hurt. I started classes, diving into marine biology with a hunger I hadn't felt in years. My professors noticed, one even pulling me aside to praise my essay on coral bleaching. For the first time, I felt like I was running toward something, not away. Sophia kept me updated. The divorce was messy. Tyler was fighting it, claiming she was overreacting. But the audit was moving forward, and the paper trail led straight to him. Karen called me once, her voice icy, accusing me of tearing the family apart. I hung up. She didn't get to lecture me about family. Dad tried harder, showing up at the diner with flowers like that could fix anything. I told him to stop. "You want to make this right? Tell Karen to own what she did. Tell Tyler to pay me back." He nodded, but I could see the defeat in his eyes. He was trapped in a life he'd chosen, and I wasn't his escape hatch. By the time spring rolled around, I was settling into my new life. Classes, study groups, late nights in the library. It was grueling, but it was mine. Sophia and I stayed in touch, our unlikely bond growing. She was rebuilding too, taking back her life from Tyler's shadow. We weren't friends, exactly, but we were survivors, tied by the same betrayal. The audit results came in April. Tyler had misappropriated $20,000 of the fund into a shady real estate deal. Sophia's lawyer was ruthless, and Tyler was facing legal trouble. Karen was furious, blaming me, but Dad was silent. I didn't care. I had my scholarship, my purpose, and a future I'd built without them. But there was one more step. Karen and Dad's anniversary was coming up, a big party they'd planned months ago. They'd invited me, probably expecting me to play the dutiful daughter. I had other plans. The anniversary invitation sat on my desk, its gold-embossed lettering mocking me. Dad and Karen's celebration of love was set for a swanky hotel ballroom, another display of their perfect family facade. I wasn't going, but I wasn't going to ghost them quietly either. This time, I'd make sure my absence spoke louder than their vows. Sophia's audit had cracked open the truth. Tyler's business venture was a scam, and the $20,000 he'd taken from my fund was gone, sunk into a failed condo project. The rest had funded their wedding's excesses, custom ice sculptures, a designer gown, a honeymoon in Bali. Sophia was livid, her divorce lawyer piling on charges of fraud. I didn't want the money back anymore. I wanted accountability. I spent weeks planning my move. Jess, ever my co-conspirator, suggested something bold. A public statement, not just a letter. "Hit them where it hurts," she said. "Their precious image." I liked the idea. Karen thrived on appearances, and Dad went along to keep the peace. Exposing their hypocrisy at their own party felt poetic. I crafted a speech not for delivery, but to be printed on elegant cards, small enough to slip into gift bags. Each card told my story in brief. How my college fund, my late mother's legacy, was spent on a wedding I wasn't even invited to shape. It ended with a simple line: "Family doesn't erase family. I'm building my future without you." I didn't name Tyler or Karen explicitly. Let them fill in the blanks. The logistics were trickier. I couldn't afford to attend their party, and I didn't want to. Jess knew a guy who worked catering at the hotel, a friend from her old neighborhood. For a 20 and a favor, he agreed to slip the cards into the gift bags during setup. This is some next-level petty, he said, grinning. I respect it. The night of the anniversary, I stayed home, my laptop open to a marine biology lecture. My phone was off, but Jess kept me updated via text. Bags are loaded. Cards are in. Wish I could see Karen's face, she wrote. I imagined the guests opening their bags, pulling out the cards, whispering as they read. Would Dad be embarrassed? Would Karen rage? I didn't care. I spoke in my truth. The fallout came fast. By morning, my inbox was flooded. Aunts, cousins, family friends, people I hadn't heard from in years, sent messages of shock, support, even apologies. I had no idea, my Aunt Linda wrote. Your mom would be heartbroken. That one stung. My mom, gone since I was 10, had left that fund to secure my future. Now it was a footnote in someone else's story. Dad called, his voice shaking with anger and hurt. Emma, how could you? You humiliated us. I let him talk, then said, you humiliated me first. You chose a wedding over my education. He hung up, and for the first time I felt free. Not happy, but unburdened. Sophia texted too. She'd been at the party, invited as Tyler's soon-to-be ex. The cards were a hit, she wrote. Karen tried to laugh it off, but people were talking all night. She added that Tyler was facing a lawsuit from his investors, and the audit had frozen his accounts. Karma wasn't swift, but it was thorough. I threw myself into school. Marine biology was more than a major now, it was my lifeline. I joined a research team studying local coral reefs, spending weekends knee-deep in saltwater, collecting samples. My professor, Dr. Hayes, saw my drive and offered me a summer internship in Florida, studying dolphin behavior. It was unpaid, but it was a foot in the door. I said yes without hesitation. Karen sent a letter, not an apology, but a defense. She claimed they'd always planned to make it right, that I was ungrateful, that I'd poisoned the family. I didn't respond. Her words were noise, not truth. Dad stopped calling altogether, and I let him fade. The scholarship covered my needs, and my diner tips filled the gaps. I was okay. Sophia and I met up occasionally, our talks less about Tyler and more about moving forward. She was starting over, taking graphic design classes, rediscovering herself. You inspired me, she said once, over coffee. You didn't let them break you. I shrugged, but her words warmed me. We were both rebuilding brick by brick. The anniversary stunt had cost me the last threads of my family, but it gave me something better, clarity. I didn't need their approval or their money. I had my own path, carved through grit and stubborn hope. But there was one loose end, Tyler. He was still out there, dodging consequences, living off charm and lies. I wasn't done with him yet. Tyler's world was crumbling, but he didn't know I was watching. Sophia's updates kept me in the loop. His investors were suing, his accounts were frozen, and his charm was wearing thin. I didn't want revenge, not exactly. I wanted him to face the mess he'd made, to feel the weight of my stolen future. I was knee-deep in my new life, balancing classes and research. The Coral Reef Project consumed my weekends, my hands calloused from handling equipment, my mind alive with data and discovery. Dr. Hayes praised my work, saying I had a knack for fieldwork. The Florida internship was months away, and I was already saving for it. Every diner tip a step closer to dolphins and open water. But Tyler's shadow lingered, a reminder of what I'd lost. Sophia called one evening, her voice tense. I found something, she said. Tyler's been hiding assets. There's a second account offshore with some of your money. She'd hired a private investigator, fueled by her own anger. The account held $10,000, half of what Tyler had siphoned from my fund. It wasn't enough to change my life, but it was proof he'd lied, not just to me, but to everyone. We met at her apartment, a small place she'd rented after leaving Tyler. Papers were spread across her table. Bank records, emails, even a photo of Tyler signing documents with a shady broker. "I'm taking this to my lawyer," she said, her jaw set. "But you should have it too. It's your money." I nodded, my mind racing. This wasn't just about the cash, it was about holding him accountable. I took the evidence to a lawyer, a pro bono advocate Jess found through her network. His name was Mr. Carter, a no-nonsense guy with a thick Boston accent. He reviewed the documents, his brow furrowing. "This is fraud," he said. "We can file a civil suit, maybe even push for criminal charges. But it'll be a fight." I didn't have money for a long legal battle, but I didn't need to win in court, just to make Tyler sweat. We filed the suit, naming Tyler and Karen as co-defendants, since she'd signed off on the funds withdrawal. The papers were served at their office, a public spectacle I wished I'd seen. Sophia texted me a play-by-play. Tyler's face went white. Karen's voice hit a pitch only dogs could hear. Dad wasn't named, but I knew this would hit him too. The lawsuit stirred the family pot. Aunts and uncles called, some supportive, others accusing me of dragging the family name through the mud. I didn't care. My name, Emma, was the only one that mattered now. I kept studying, kept working, kept moving. The diner felt less like a trap and more like a launch pad, every shift funding my fight. Tyler tried to settle. His lawyer sent a letter offering $5,000 to drop the suit, claiming it was all he could afford. I laughed, showing it to Jess. "He thinks I'm that desperate," I said. She smirked. "Make him bleed." I rejected the offer, pushing for a full hearing. Mr. Carter warned it could take months, but I was patient. I'd waited years for my future. I could wait a little longer for justice. Meanwhile, Dad reached out again, this time in person. He showed up at my apartment, unannounced, looking like a man who'd lost his way. "Emma, this lawsuit, it's killing us," he said, his voice breaking. "Karen's a wreck. Tyler's losing everything." I stared at him, the man who'd once been my hero. "You didn't care when it was killing me," I said. He left without another word. School became my sanctuary. My research team presented our choral findings at a regional conference, and I stood in front of scientists, my voice steady, explaining our data. Dr. Hayes pulled me aside after, saying, "You've got a future in this, Emma. Don't let anything stop you." His words were a lifeline, pulling me through the chaos. Sophia's divorce hearing was scheduled the same week as my lawsuit's first court date. We met for coffee, both of us nervous but resolute. "We're doing this," she said, clinking her mug against mine. "For us." I nodded, feeling the weight of our shared fight. Tyler had underestimated us both, and that was his mistake. The courtroom loomed in my mind, not as a place of fear, but of reckoning. I wasn't just fighting for money. I was fighting for the girl who'd believed in promises, who'd trusted her family to have her back. That girl was still in me, but she was stronger now, forged in betrayal and tempered by her own will. The courtroom smelled of polished wood and stale coffee, its silence heavy as I sat beside Mr. Carter. Tyler was across the room, his suit sharp but his eyes hollow, like a man who knew the walls were closing in. Karen sat behind him, her face a mask of indignation, while Dad was nowhere to be seen. I didn't expect him to show. Mr. Carter presented the evidence. Bank statements, emails, Sophia's investigator's report. The judge, a stern woman with gray streaks in her hair, listened intently as he outlined how Tyler had diverted my college fund into his offshore account, how Karen had authorized the withdrawal, claiming it was for family priorities. I spoke next, my voice steady, recounting the promises Dad made, the dreams I'd built on that fund. "It wasn't just money," I said. "It was my future, my mom's legacy." Tyler's lawyer argued he'd acted in good faith, that the fund was a shared resource. The judge wasn't buying it. She ordered a full financial disclosure, freezing Tyler's remaining assets pending the outcome. Karen's gasp was audible, and I felt a flicker of satisfaction. Not joy, but justice. Outside, Sophia was waiting, her own hearing fresh in her mind. Tyler's toast, she said, a grim smile on her face. Her divorce was finalized, and she'd won a settlement, including half the offshore account. She insisted on giving me $5,000 of it, calling it your money, not mine. I tried to refuse, but she was adamant. Take it, Emma. You earned it. I used the money to cover moving costs. The scholarship had opened doors, and Dr. Hayes helped me secure a small grant to relocate for the Florida internship. I found a cheap studio near the research center, a place with peeling paint but a view of the ocean. Every morning, I woke to the sound of waves, a reminder of why I'd fought so hard. Back home, the lawsuit dragged on, but the tide was turning. Tyler's investors were circling, his business collapsing under the weight of fraud allegations. Karen tried to spin it, telling family I was vindictive. But the truth was spreading. My cards at the anniversary had done their job, people were talking, and not in her favor. Dad finally reached out, not with excuses, but an apology. He came to the diner, sitting quietly until my shift ended. I failed you, Emma, he said, his voice raw. I let Karen call the shots, and I lost you. I wanted to hug him, to erase the years of distance, but I couldn't. Not yet. I need time, I told him. He nodded, tears in his eyes, and left. Florida was a new world. The internship was grueling, long days on boats, analyzing dolphin pods, logging behaviors. I loved every second. My team was a mix of scientists and students, all passionate about conservation. I fit in, my diner-honed hustle earning their respect. Dr. Hayes mentored me, pushing me to apply for a graduate program. You're a natural, he said. Don't stop now. Sophia visited once on a break from her design classes. We walked the beach, the sunset painting the sky in pinks and oranges. We did it, didn't we? She said, kicking at the sand. We took our lives back. I nodded, the weight of the past year lifting slightly. We weren't friends in the traditional sense, but we were bound by survival, by the shared scars of Tyler's greed. The lawsuit ended with a settlement. Tyler and Karen agreed to pay $15,000, funded by selling Tyler's car and some of Karen's jewelry. It wasn't the full amount, but it was enough to cover my grad school applications and a used laptop. More importantly, it was an admission they'd wronged me. I donated half to a scholarship fund for single-parent kids, a nod to my mom's memory. Dad started writing letters, long ones, filled with memories of my childhood and promises to do better. I read them but didn't respond. Forgiveness wasn't a switch I could flip. Karen faded from my life, her influence over Dad waning as he faced his mistakes. Tyler disappeared, his social media silent, his name a whisper in family gossip. I stood on the beach one evening, the internship winding down, my future stretching out like the horizon. I'd lost a family, but I'd gained myself, Emma, the girl who'd fought for her dreams and won. The ocean roared approval, and I knew I was exactly where I belonged. The Florida sun hung low, casting a golden glow over the research center's dock. I stood there, clipboard in hand, logging the day's dolphin sightings, my heart full in a way I hadn't thought possible a year ago. The ocean stretched endless before me, a promise I'd kept to myself despite everything. The lawsuit settlement had closed a chapter, but it didn't erase the scars. The $15,000 was a practical win, but the real victory was internal. I'd reclaimed my voice, my purpose, my future. Grad school applications were in, my essays polished with Dr. Hayes' guidance. The scholarship and internship had given me a foundation, and I was building on it, brick by stubborn brick. Dad's letters kept coming, each one a step toward redemption. The latest included a photo of us at my 8th birthday, me grinning with cake on my face, him laughing behind me. I want to be that dad again, he wrote. I wasn't ready to let him back in, but I kept the photo, tucking it into a drawer beside my mom's old locket. Maybe one day. Karen was a ghost now. Family gossip said she and Dad were struggling, her control slipping as he questioned her choices. Tyler was a nonentity, his name barely mentioned. Sophia had heard he'd moved to another state, chasing another scheme. I didn't care where he was, as long as he was gone. Sophia was thriving. Her design portfolio was gaining traction, and she'd started a blog about reclaiming life after betrayal. We texted occasionally, sharing small victories, her first paid design gig, my acceptance into a grad program. "We're unstoppable," she wrote once, with a fist bump emoji. I smiled, agreeing silently. The internship ended with a small ceremony, my team presenting our findings to local conservation groups. I spoke about dolphin communication, my voice confident, my data precise. The audience applauded, and Dr. Hayes pulled me aside. "You're ready for the next step," he said. "Apply for that PhD program. I'll write your recommendation." I nodded, my throat tight with gratitude. Back at my studio, I packed for the move to grad school. The $7,500 I donated to the scholarship fund felt like a weight lifted, a way to honor my mom and help kids like me. The rest went to practical things, books, a deposit on a new place. Jess sent a care package from the diner. Coffee mugs, a note saying, "Kick-ass Marine girl." I laughed, missing her but knowing she'd visit. One evening, I walked the beach, the waves lapping at my feet. I thought about the letter that started it all, the betrayal that had nearly broken me. I'd been so angry, so hurt, but that fire had forged something stronger. I wasn't just Emma, the girl whose family failed her. I was Emma, the scientist, the fighter, the one who'd chosen herself. Dad's anniversary with Karen passed without an invitation this year. I didn't need one. I'd skipped their celebration not out of spite, but because I was building something better. They'd wondered why I hadn't shown up, but the answer was simple. I was too busy living the life they tried to take. I applied for the PhD program, my application a love letter to the ocean and the creatures I'd sworn to protect. Dr. Hayes's recommendation was glowing, and I felt a flicker of hope that this was only the beginning. The diner, the betrayal, the lawsuit, they were chapters, not the whole story. As I stood on the shore, a dolphin breached in the distance, its arc a perfect curve against the sunset. I smiled, knowing my mom would have loved this. Her daughter, standing tall, chasing dreams she'd helped plant. I didn't need my parents' approval or their money. I had the sea, my work, and the strength I'd found in myself. The future wasn't certain, but it was mine. I'd fought for it, bled for it, and now I was living it. The waves whispered my name, and I answered with a vow. I'd keep going, no matter what came next.